My mother-in-law's hand was literally shaking as she tried to pull the dusty cardboard box out of my reach, but it was too late. I had already unfolded the yellowed piece of paper. "That's private, Maya. Put that down right now," she screamed. But my eyes were already locked on the header. A certified paternity test. 99.9% probability of fatherhood. Dated 18 years ago, signed by my husband, Mark. We had been married for 15 years. 15 years of what I thought was total transparency, shared dreams, and building a life together. I was standing in a cramped, humid attic, surrounded by Christmas decorations and old furniture, holding absolute proof that the man I slept next to every night had been living a complete lie since before we even met. My heart wasn't just beating, it was hammering against my ribs so hard I felt sick. And looking at the pure panic in my mother-in-law's eyes, I realized something even worse. He hadn't hidden this alone. His whole family had helped him cover it up. If you're new here, subscribe. I post a new story every day. Because honestly, if I had to process this kind of betrayal by myself, I think I would have lost my mind, and I know so many of you have dealt with family secrets that completely blew up your life. Okay, so let me back up for a second so you understand how I even ended up in that attic. Mark and I met in our mid-20s. He was always the steady guy, the responsible one. The guy who remembered birthdays, paid his taxes early, and called his mother every Sunday. When we got married, we talked about everything. Exes, past mistakes, high school embarrassing stories, or so I thought. We tried for years to have kids of our own, but after a really painful journey with fertility treatments, we were told it just wasn't in the cards for us. It was devastating. Mark held me while I cried for months. He looked me in the eye and said, "It's just you and me, Maya. That's all I need." Now here's where I'd have lost it if I knew then what I know now. Because while I was grieving the family we could never have, Mark already had a child out there in the world. Fast forward to last week. Mark's mother, Evelyn, was downsizing her home to move into a retirement community. Mark was tied up with work, so being the dutiful daughter-in-law, I offered to help her pack up the attic. Evelyn was being super jumpy the whole morning, constantly hovering over me. Every time I moved toward a corner, she'd say, "Oh, don't worry about those boxes, Maya, Mark will get them later." I thought she was just overwhelmed by the move. I mean, moving after 30 years is stressful, right? So I kept going. I reached behind a stack of old trunks and pulled out a small, unlabeled plastic bin. Evelyn practically lunged across the room. And that's when the paper spilled out. It wasn't just the DNA test either. Underneath the lab results was a legal agreement. Child support payment records spanning 18 straight years. Photos. A little girl with Mark's exact smile, starting from a tiny bundle in a hospital blanket, all the way to a high school graduation picture. On the back of the graduation photo, in Mark's handwriting, it said, "My beautiful girl." I couldn't breathe. I looked at Evelyn, who was now pale as a sheet, leaning against the doorframe. "Who is this?" I asked. My voice sounded fake, like it was coming from someone else. Evelyn swallowed hard and whispered, "Maya, please. It was before he met you. It was a mistake. A mistake. An 18-year-old human being isn't a mistake you just sweep under an attic rug. How do you look your wife in the face for 15 years, watch her cry over negative pregnancy tests, and never mention you have a daughter? Would you have confronted him right then, or would you have gathered more proof first? Let me know below, because I couldn't just sit on this." I didn't scream at Evelyn. I didn't yell. I just quietly grabbed my phone, took crisp, clear photos of every single document, every court order, and every picture in that box. Evelyn was begging me, "Please, Maya, don't ruin his life. He did this to protect you. He didn't want you to feel insecure. Protect me." Wait, read that part again. Protecting me by lying to my face for 15 years. By making his entire family complicit in a massive lie. I packed my stuff, walked out of her house, and drove straight to a parking lot down the street. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely put the car in park. I sat there staring at the photos on my phone. The girl's name was Chloe. She turned 18 2 months ago. Mark had been paying off the record child support through a private legal trust funded through his mother's account, which explains why I never saw the money leaving our joint checking account. He deliberately structured his finances so his own wife would never trace it. I spent 3 hours sitting in that parking lot, putting the pieces together. Every business trip Mark took that felt a little off. Every time he had to help his mom with an emergency on a weekend. It was all visits. It was all a parallel life. I'll be honest, I didn't expect what came next when I finally drove home. Mark was sitting in the living room, completely oblivious, watching TV with a glass of water. He smiled when I walked in. "Hey babe, how did the packing go with Mom?" I didn't answer. I walked over to the TV, turned it off, and laid my phone on the coffee table, right in front of him. Screen lit up with the picture of Chloe's graduation photo. The color instantly drained from his face. He didn't even try to deny it. He just froze. Where did you get that?" he stammered. "Your mother's attic," I said, keeping my voice dangerously flat. "She tried to hide it. She failed." He put his head in his hands and started sobbing. Not apologizing, sobbing for himself. "Maya, you don't understand," he said. "It happened right before I met you. The mother didn't want me involved, but I insisted on paying support. When you and I got serious, I didn't know how to tell you. Then years passed, and it just got harder and harder." I looked at him and said, "Harder?" "We spent tens of thousands of dollars on fertility treatments. I felt broken for a decade. And you had a child the whole time." He looked up at me with tears streaming down his face and said the absolute worst thing he could have possibly said. "I didn't tell you because I knew you'd want to be in her life, and I couldn't handle mixing my past with my future." Can you even imagine the level of selfishness it takes to make that decision for someone else? That was the line that broke whatever was left of my heart. He didn't keep it a secret to protect my feelings. He kept it a secret because it was convenient for him. He got to be the hero father in secret, paying his dues, while acting like the tragic, childless husband at home. I packed a suitcase that night and stayed at a hotel. Over the next 48 hours, my phone blew up. Calls from Mark, calls from Evelyn, texts from his sister telling me to think of the family, and not throw away 15 years over something in the past. The past. She is 18. She's an adult starting her life. And more than that, the deceit was happening in the present. Every single day, I decided I was done letting them control the narrative. I tracked down Chloe's mother through public records, not to cause a scene, but because I needed to know if Chloe even knew about me. We met at a quiet coffee shop. She was gracious, sad, and completely honest. She told me Mark had visited Chloe a few times a year, always claiming he was extremely busy with work. Chloe knew he was married, but Mark had told her that I was aware of the situation but preferred not to be involved. He lied to her too. He made me out to be the cold, heartless stepmother who wanted nothing to do with her, just to cover up the fact that he was hiding her from me. That was the final straw. I hired a divorce attorney the very next morning. When Mark received the papers, he tried to show up at my hotel, begging, pleading, saying he would introduce me to Chloe, that we could fix this, that we could be a family now. I told him the door on that closed 15 years ago. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. Because he had hidden assets and diverted funds through his mother's accounts to manage the secret trust, my lawyer was able to secure a significantly higher settlement for me. He lost his wife, he lost the trust of his entire extended family once the real reason for our divorce came out, and his relationship with Chloe is severely strained now that she knows he blamed me for his own cowardice. As for me, it's been a tough road rebuilding my life from scratch in my 90s built house alone, but the air feels clean now. When someone lies to you for nearly 2 decades, they aren't trying to keep you from getting hurt. They're keeping you from making an informed choice about your own life. Love cannot survive where truth isn't allowed to breathe. What would you have done in my position? Would you have tried to work through it, or was the lie too big to forgive? Drop your verdict in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video, and subscribe if you haven't already. I post a new story every single day. Take care of yourselves out there, and I'll see you in the next one.